Hello everyone, and thanks for watching my channel. This is Cris COVERies, and let me entertain you by sharing and discussing with you a lot of interesting topics that you can watch here at Cris COVERies TV. If you want to help me grow this channel, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. And after you watch the presentation, I expect you to leave a comment of your reaction and observation. And likewise, I appreciate if you click the like and bell buttons as well. The subject of this presentation is all about the epic film trilogy, which has been considered to be included in the list of the best movies of all time, none other than the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where I am going to share with you some interesting facts and information about the three films under the trilogy. We will go through with each of their respective movie trailers, and I will share with you each movie's cast and characters, stories, awards, budget details, and of course, their success at the box office. And without further ado, let's begin with the series' summary. The Lord of the Rings film series. The Lord of the Rings is a series of three epic fantasy adventure films directed by Peter Jackson, based on the novel written by J.R.R. Tolkien. The films are subtitled The Fellowship of the Ring, released in 2001, The Two Towers, released in 2002, and The Return of the King, released in 2003. Produced and distributed by New Line Cinema with the co-production of Wingnut Films. It is an international venture between New Zealand and the United States. The films feature an ensemble cast including Elijah Wood, Ian McKellen, Liv Tyler, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Astin, Kate Blanchett, John Rhys Davies, Christopher Lee, Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, Orlando Bloom, Hugo Weaving, Andy Serkis, and Sean Bean. Set in the fictional world of Middle-earth, the films follow the Hobbit Frodo Baggins as he and the Fellowship embark on a quest to destroy the One Ring, to ensure the destruction of its maker, the Dark Lord Sauron. The Fellowship eventually splits up, and Frodo continues the quest with his loyal companion Sam and the treacherous Gollum. Meanwhile, Aragorn, heir in exile to the throne of Gondor, along with Legolas, Gimli, Boromir, Merry, Pippin, and the wizard Gandalf, unite to save the free people of Middle-earth from the forces of Sauron and rally them in the War of the Ring to aid Frodo by distracting Sauron's attention. The three films were shot simultaneously and entirely in New Zealand from October 1999 until December 2000. With pick-up shots done from 2001 to 2004. It was one of the biggest and most ambitious film projects ever undertaken, with a budget of $281 million. An extended edition of each film was released on home video a year after its release in cinemas. The Lord of the Rings is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential film series ever made. It was major financial success and is among the highest grossing film series of all time, with $2.991 billion in worldwide receipts. Each film was critically acclaimed with high praise for their innovative special effects, acting, set design, musical score, and emotional depth, and heavily awarded, the series winning 17 out of its 30 Academy Awards nomination. In 2021, The Fellowship of the Ring was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Number 1. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. The Fellowship of the Ring is a 2001 epic fantasy adventure film directed by Peter Jackson, based on the 1954 novel The Fellowship of the Ring. the first volume of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. The film is the first installment in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The film features an ensemble cast including Elijah Wood, Ian McKellen, Liv Tyler, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Astin, Kate Blanchett, John Rhys Davies, Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, Orlando Bloom, Christopher Lee, Hugo Weaving, Sean Bean, Ian Holm, and Andy Serkis. Set in the Middle-earth, the story tells of the Dark Lord Sauron who seeks the One Ring, which contains part of his soul, in order to return to power. The ring has found its way to the young hobbit Frodo Baggins. The fate of the Middle-earth hangs in the balance as Frodo and 8 companions who form the Fellowship of the Ring begin their journey to Mount Doom in the land of Mordor, the only place where the ring can be destroyed. The Fellowship of the Ring was co-financed and distributed by American studio New Line Cinema, but filmed and edited entirely in New Zealand, concurrently with the other 2 parts of the trilogy. It premiered in December 10, 2001 at the Odeon Leicester Square in London, theatrically released worldwide on December 19, 2001. The film was acclaimed by critics and fans alike, who considered it to be a landmark in filmmaking and an achievement in the fantasy film genre. It received praise for its visual effects, performances, Jackson's direction, screenplay, and faithfulness to the source materials. It grossed $880 million worldwide in its initial release, making it the second highest grossing film of 2001 and the 5th highest grossing film of all time at the time of its release. Following subsequent reissues, it has, as of 2021, grossed over $897 million. The Fellowship of the Ring, like its successors, is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential films ever made. The film received numerous accolades at the 74th Academy Awards. It was nominated for 13 awards including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor for McKellen, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Original Song for May It Be, and Best Sound, winning for Best Cinematography, Best Makeup, Best Original Score, and Best Visual Effects. In 2007, the American Film Institute named it one of the 100 greatest American films in history, being both the most recent film and the only film released in the 21st century to make it to the list. In 2021, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The plot started on in the Second Age of Middle-earth. The Lord of Elves, Dwarves, and Men are given rings of power. Unbeknownst to them, the Dark Lord Sauron forges the One Ring in Mount Doom, instilling into a great part of his power in order to dominate the other rings, so he might conquer Middle-earth. A final alliance of men and elves battle Sauron's forces in Mordor, instilling into it a great power of his power in order to dominate the other rings so he might conquer Middle-earth. Isildur of Gondor severs Sauron's finger and the ring with it, thereby vanquishing Sauron and returning him to spirit form. With Sauron's first defeat, the Third Age of Middle-earth begins. The ring's influence corrupts Isildur, who takes it for himself and is later killed by orcs. The ring is lost in a river for 2,500 years until it's found by Gollum, who owns it for over 4.5 centuries. The ring abandons Gollum and it's subsequently found by a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, who is unaware of its history. 60 years later, Bilbo celebrates his 111th birthday in the Shire, reuniting with his old friend, the wizard Gandalf the Grey. Bilbo departs the Shire for one last adventure, and he leaves his inheritance, including the ring, to his nephew Frodo. Gandalf investigates the ring, discovers its true nature, and learns that Gollum was captured and tortured by Sauron's orc, revealing two words during his interrogation: Shire and Baggins. Gandalf returns and warns Frodo to leave the Shire. As Frodo departs with his friend, Gardener Samwise Gamgee, Gandalf rides to Isengard to meet with the wizard Saruman, but discovers his alliance with Sauron, who was dispatched his 9 undead Nazgul servants to find Frodo. Frodo and Sam are joined by fellow hobbits Merry and Pippin, and they evade Nazgul before arriving in Bree, where they are meant to meet Gandalf. However, Gandalf never arrives, having been taken prisoner by Saruman. The hobbits are then aided by a ranger named Strider, who promises to escort them to Rivendell. However, they are ambushed by the Nazgul on Weathertop, and their leader, the Witch King, stabs Frodo with a Morgul blade. Arwen, an elf and Strider's beloved, locates Strider and rescued Frodo, summoning floodwaters that sweep the Nazgul away. She takes him to Rivendell, where he is healed by the elves. Frodo meets Gandalf, who escaped Isengard on a great eagle. That night, Strider reunites with Arwen, and they affirm their love for each other. Facing the threat of both Sauron and Saruman, Arwen's father, Lord Elrond, decides against keeping the ring in Rivendell. He holds a council of elves, men, and dwarves, also attended by Frodo and Gandalf, that decide the ring must be destroyed in the fires of Mount Doom. Frodo volunteers to take the ring, accompanied by Gandalf, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Elf Legolas, Dwarf Gimli, Boromir of Gondor, and Strider, who is actually Aragorn, Isildur's heir and the rightful king of Gondor. Bilbo, now living in Rivendell, gives Frodo a sword sting and a chainmail shirt made of mithril. The Fellowship of the Ring makes for the Gap of Rohan, but discover it is being watched by Saruman's spies of Caradhras. But Saruman summons a storm that forces them to travel through the mines of Moria. After finding the dwarves of Moria dead, the Fellowship is attacked by orcs and a cave troll. They hold them off but are confronted by Durin's Bane, a Balrog residing within the mines. While the others escape, Gandalf fends off the Balrog and casts it into vast chasm, but the Balrog drags Gandalf down into the darkness with him. The devastated Fellowship reaches Lothlorien, ruled by the Elf Queen Galadriel, who privately informs Frodo that only he can complete the quest and that one of his friends in the Fellowship will try to take the ring. Meanwhile, Saruman creates an army of Uruk-hai in Isengard to find and kill the Fellowship. The Fellowship travels by river Oparth Galen. Frodo wanders off and is confronted by Boromir, who tries to take the ring as Lady Galadriel has predicted. Uruk-hai scouts then ambush the Fellowship, mortally wounding Boromir as he fails to stop them from taking Merry and Pippin as prisoners. Aragorn arrives and comforts Boromir as he dies, promising to help the people of Gondor in the coming conflict. Fearing the ring will corrupt his friends, Frodo decides to travel to Mordor alone, but allows Sam to come along, recalling this promise to Gandalf to look after him. As Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli set out to rescue Merry and Pippin, Frodo and Sam make their way down the mountain pass of Eminmuil, journeying on to Mordor. Number 2. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers is a 2002 epic fantasy adventure film directed by Peter Jackson, based on the second volume of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. The film is the second installment in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The film features an ensemble cast including Elijah Wood, Ian McKellen, Liv Tyler, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Astin, Kate Blanchett, John Rhys Davies, Bernard Hill, Christopher Lee, Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, Orlando Bloom, Hugo Weaving, Miranda Otto, David Wenham, Brad Dourif, Carl Urban, and Andy Serkis. Continuing the plot of the Fellowship of the Ring, The film intercuts three storylines. Frodo and Sam continue their journey towards Mordor to destroy the One Ring. Meeting and joined by Gollum, the ring's former keeper, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli come to the war-torn nation of Rohan and are reunited with the resurrected Gandalf. Before fighting against the legion of the treacherous wizard Saruman at the Battle of Helm's Deep, Merry and Pippin escape capture, meet Treebird the Ent, and help to plan an attack on Isengard, fortress of Saruman. The film was acclaimed by both critics and audiences, who considered it to be a landmark in filmmaking and an achievement in the fantasy film genre. It received praise for its direction, action, sequences, performances, and CGI, particularly for Gollum. It grossed $936 million worldwide, making it the highest-grossing film of 2002 and the third highest-grossing film of all time at the time of its release. Following subsequent reissues, it has as of 2021 grossed over $947 million. The Two Towers, like the other films in the trilogy, is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential films ever made. The film received numerous accolades at the 75th Academy Awards. It was nominated for 6 awards including Best Picture, winning for Best Sound Editing and Best Visual Effects. Awakening from a dream of Gandalf fighting the Balrog in Moria, Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee find themselves lost in the Emyn Muil near Mordor and discover they are being tracked by Gollum, a former bearer of the One Ring. Capturing Gollum, Frodo takes pity and allows him to guide them, reminding Sam that they will need Gollum's help to infiltrate Mordor. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli pursue a band of Uruk-hai to save their companions Merry and Pippin, entering the kingdom of Rohan. The Uruk-hai ambushed by a group of Rohirrim, allowing the hobbits to escape into Fangorn Forest. The Rohirrim's leader, Eomer, explained meeting Aragorn's group. The Rohirrim's leader, Eomer, explains that he and his men have been exiled by Rohan's king, Theoden, who is under the control of Saruman and his servant, Grima Wormtongue. Eomer believes Merry and Pippin were killed during the raid but leaves the group 2 horses. Searching for the hobbits in Fangorn, Aragorn group encounters Gandalf, who after his fight against the Balrog was resurrected as Gandalf the White to help save Middle-earth. Gandalf leads the trio to Rohan's capital, Edoras, where Gandalf frees Theoden from Saruman's control. Aragorn stops Theoden from executing Wormtongue, who flees, learning of Saruman's plan to destroy Rohan with his Uruk-hai army. Theoden evacuates his citizens to the fortress of the Hornburg at Helm's Deep. Gandalf departs to find Eomer and his followers, hoping they will fight for the restored king. Aragorn befriends Theoden's niece, Eowyn, who becomes infatuated with him. With the refugees traveling to Helm's Deep are attacked by Saruman's warg-riding orcs. Aragorn falls from a cliff and is presumed dead. He is found by his horse Brego and rides to Helm's Deep, witnessing Saruman's army marching to the fortress. In Rivendell, Arwen is told by her father, Elrond, that Aragorn will not return. He reminds her that if she remains in Middle-earth, she will outlive Aragorn by thousands of years, and she reluctantly departs from Valinor. Elrond is contacted by Galadriel of Lothlorien, who convince him that the elves should honor their alliance to men, and they dispatch an army of elves to Helm's Deep. In Fangorn, Merry and Pippin meet Treebird, an Ent, convincing Treebird that they are allies. They are brought to an Ent council, where the Ents decide not to take part of the coming war. Pippin asks Treebird to take them in the direction of Isengard, where they witness the deforestation caused by Saruman's war effort. Enraged, Treebird and the Ents storm Isengard, trapping Saruman in his tower. Aragorn arrives at Helm's Deep, bringing word that Saruman army is close and Theoden must prepare for battle, despite being vastly outnumbered. The army of elves from Lothlorien arrives, as does Saruman's army, and battle ensues. The Uruk-hai breach the outer wall with explosives, and during the ensuing charge, kill the elves' commander Haldir. The defenders retreat the keep, where Aragorn convinced Theoden to meet the Uruk-hai in one last charge. At dawn, as the defenders are overwhelmed, Gandalf and Eomer arrive with the Rohirrim, turning the tide of the battle. The surviving Uruk-hai flee into Fangorn Forest and are killed by the Ents. Gandalf warns that Sauron will retaliate. Gollum leads Frodo and Sam through the Dead Marshes to the Black Gate, but recommends they enter Mordor by another route. Frodo and Sam are captured by rangers of Ithilien, led by Faramir, brother of the late Boromir. Frodo helps Faramir catch Gollum to save him from being killed by the rangers. Learning of the One Ring, Faramir takes his captives to Gondor to bring the ring to his father Denethor. Passing through the besieged city of Osgiliath, Frodo tries to explain to Faramir the true nature of the ring, and Sam explains that Boromir was driven mad by its power. A Nazgul nearly captures Frodo, who falls under the ring's power. Fortunately, Sam saves him and reminds him that they are fighting for the good still left in Middle-earth. Impressed by Frodo's resolve, Faramir releases them. Gollum decides to betray Frodo and reclaim the ring by leading the group to her upon arriving at Cirith Ungol. Number 3. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King is a 2003 epic fantasy adventure film directed by Peter Jackson, based on the third volume of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. The film is the final entry in The Lord of the Rings. Continuing the plot of the Two Towers, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are making their final way toward Mount Doom in Mordor in order to destroy the One Ring. Unaware of Gollum's true intention, while Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and the rest are joining forces together against Sauron and his legions in Minas Tirith. Like the first two films, this film features an ensemble cast including Elijah Wood, Ian McKellen, Liv Tyler, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Astin, Kate Blanchett, John Rhys-Davies, Bernard Hill, Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, Orlando Bloom, Hugo Weaving, Miranda Otto, David Wenham, Carl Urban, John Noble, Andy Serkis, Ian Holm, and Sean Bean. The Return of the King was financed and distributed by American studio New Line Cinema, but filmed and edited entirely in New Zealand, concurrently with the two parts of the trilogy. It premiered on December 1, 2003 at the Embassy Theatre in Wellington, and was theatrically released on December 17, 2003 in the United States, and on December 18, 2003 in New Zealand. The film was acclaimed by both critics and audiences, who considered it to be a landmark in filmmaking and the fantasy film genre, with praise for the visual effects, performances, action sequences, direction, screenplay, musical score, costume design, and emotional depth. It grossed over $1.1 billion worldwide, making it the highest grossing film of 2003 and the second highest grossing film of all time at the time of its release, and 25th highest grossing film of all time as of April 2022, as well as the highest grossing film released by the New Line Cinema. Like the other two entries, of the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, The Return of the King is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential films ever made. The film received numerous accolades at the 76th Academy Awards. It won all 11 Oscars for which it was nominated, including Best Picture, tying with Ben-Hur and Titanic as the movie with the most Oscar wins. It also became the second film series whose entries have all won Best Visual Effects after the original Star Wars trilogy. The plot started when the Hobbit Smeagol is fishing with his cousin Deagol, who discovers the One Ring in the river. Smeagol's mind is ensnared by the ring, and he kills his cousin for it. Increasingly corrupted physically and mentally, he retreats into the misty mountains and becomes known as Gollum. Centuries later, during the War of the Ring, Gandalf leads where they reunite with Merry and Pippin. Gandalf retrieves Saruman's Palantir, and the group returns to Edoras to celebrate their victory at Helm's Deep. Pippin looks into the Palantir, seeing Sauron and Burning Tree. Gandalf deduces that the enemy plans to attack Gondor's capital Minas Tirith. He rides there to warn Gondor's steward Denethor. Pippin, who accompanies him, swears fealty to Denethor, whose now dead heir Boromir had saved his life. On Gandalf's instruction, he triggers the lighting to the beacons, which call for help from Rohan. Frodo, who carries the ring, and Sam continue their journey towards Mordor, unaware that Gollum, now their guide, plans to betray them and take the ring for himself. The trio witness the Witch King of Angmar, Lord of the Nine Nazgûl, setting off towards Gondor with his army of orc. Gollum conspires to frame Sam for eating food supplies and desiring the ring. Influenced by the growing power of the ring, Frodo is taken in by the deception and orders Sam to go home. Gollum then tricks Frodo into venturing into the lair of the giant spider Shelob. Frodo narrowly escapes and confronts Gollum, who falls down a chasm after a scuffle. Shelob paralyzes and binds Frodo, but is wounded and driven away by a returning Sam, who, mourning Frodo's apparent death, takes the ring. Sam realizes his mistake when a group of orcs takes Frodo captive, but manages to rescue Frodo as the orcs fight among themselves. Now inside Mordor, the Hobbits continue towards Mount Doom, their destination. As King Theoden gathers his army, Elrond tells Aragorn that Arwen is dying, having refused to leave Middle-earth. Elrond gives Aragorn Andúril, reforged from the shards of King Elendil's sword Narsil, and urges him to commit to claiming Gondor's throne, to which he is heir. Joined by Legolas and Gimli, Aragorn travels the paths of the dead, and pledges to release the ghosts there from their curse should they come to Gondor's aid. Meanwhile, Faramir, who was earlier overwhelmed and driven back to Minas Tirith by the Witch King, is gravely wounded in a suicide charge. Believing his son to be dead, Denethor falls into madness. Gandalf marshals the defenders, but the huge orc army breaks into the city. Denethor attempts to burn himself and Faramir on a pyre, but Pippin alerts Gandalf and they rescue Faramir. Denethor, set ablaze and in agony, jumps into his death. Theoden arrives and leads the army against the orc. Despite initial success against orcs, in the ensuing battle, they are decimated by the elephant-riding Haradrim, and the Witch King mortally wounds Theoden. However, his niece Eowyn slays the Witch King with Merry's help. Theoden dies in his niece's arms. Aragorn then arrives with his army of the dead, who overcome Sauron's forces and win the battle. Their oath fulfilled, and dead are released from their curse. Aragorn decides to march on Mordor to distract Sauron from Frodo, now extremely weak, and Sam. All of Sauron's remaining forces march to meet Aragorn's diversion, allowing hobbits to reach Mount Doom. Gollum, who survived his earlier fall, attacks them, but Frodo still manages to enter the mountain. There, he succumbs to the ring's power, putting it on his finger, but Gollum manages to bite off his finger and reclaim it. They struggle together and both fall off the edge. Frodo manages to cling on and is pulled up by Sam, but Gollum falls and dies. The ring, which fell with him, disintegrates in the lava. Mount Doom erupts as Sauron meets his demise, while Aragorn's army emerges victorious as its enemies flee. Gandalf rescues the hobbits with the help of eagles, and the surviving fellowship is happily reunited in Minas Tirith. Aragorn is crowned king of Gondor and marries Arwen. The hobbits return home to the Shire, where Sam marries Rosie Cotton. A few years later, Frodo departs Middle-earth for Undying Lands with his uncle Bilbo, Gandalf, and the elves. He leaves Sam the Red Book of Westmarch, which details their adventures. Sam returns to the Shire, where he embraces Rosie and their children. Back to me, guys. Once again, this is Cris COVERies, and I have shared with you the facts and figures about your favorite movie trilogy. Next time, we will sure discuss the prequel of this trilogy, none other than The Hobbit film series. For the meantime, we'll take a break, and I will be back soon for our next episode here at Cris COVERies TV. But before I leave, I will once again invite you to subscribe to my channel, and I appreciate you clicking the like and bell buttons as well. This is Cris COVERies. See you in the next episode, and good day to all of you.